Okay, are you looking for a new best friend? A rescue shelter could be your resource in the search. Albuquerque is very lucky to have so many dedicated people in dog and cat rescue groups throughout the entire city, but we wouldn't need so many groups if these animals actually had loving homes. And there are some things you need to know if you are actually heading to a rescue shelter to pick out a new pet. And that's exactly why Rachel Pridham from Clark's Pet Emporium is here, of course, our expert on the pets, and she will make us aware of what we need to know before considering adopting a pet or rescuing one. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi.
It's great to have you back.
Yes.
Always giving such valuable information regarding pets. And I want to get things started with the fact that when you are considering a rescue, there's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself first. So
Definitely.
give people some insight as to what you should consider first.
First off, you want to think, do you have other animals at home? Do you have children? And how well a new animal is going to fit in with that scenario? Some of the dogs that really need homes out there, they're older, perhaps they've come from not so great situations, may not deal really well with children. These are things you have to think about. Also, if you already have a dog, a lot of times, older animals aren't too keen to having somebody new come into the house.
Kind of steals the spotlight. I mean, it's very much, I think, like when you have children and you have a second child, you have to really be prepared for how your child that you already have is going to react.
Yes.
So it's the same thing with a pet, and I think a lot of people forget to ask those questions before they go and they say, okay, yeah, we want another dog.
Right.
But maybe that dog won't get along with your child or your other dog.
Right.
So these are really important things. Would you just say, I mean, how should people prepare? Should they just write things down, take them to the shelter and say, hey, these are some questions that I have? What other questions would you ask to the person?
Well, also you want to think about the amount of space you have in your house, and also cost. Larger dogs are going to need a lot more food.
True.
So, perhaps if you live in a smaller apartment with not such a great big yard, think about maybe a smaller dog.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't really consider that before, that you actually have to spend more the bigger they are because of their appetite.
Yeah.
Good point. Really good point. And I think another thing to consider, I would imagine, would be maybe allergies.
Right.
Because I know, for instance, I'm allergic to cats.
Yes.
But I know that there are people, sometimes they think about adopting a pet or going to a shelter, rescuing one, and they don't know how they're going to react personally.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you deal with taking some of these precautions?
Well, I definitely suggest coming into contact with a type of animal that you're going to be, adopting.
Sure.
Beforehand, a friend's dog, a friend's cat.
Sure.
That's a good
idea.
Go to the shelter and sit there and, make sure to kind of hug a dog.
Yes, that's actually a
get
good
your
idea.
face in there, see if there's a reaction.
That's a very good idea. And
Because, different types of coats are going to
react
differently,
right.
yes.
Well, one of the things I want to go back to that you said is about cost, because we had talked about this before on the show, and if people missed it, I think it's important to mention. A lot of times people will say, I know somebody who really wants a dog, and I'm going to go to the shelter and rescue them, and they're not considering what that means in turn for the person who will now take on that expense and responsibility.
Yes.
So how do you recommend people deal with these kind of factors?
Talk to the person first.
Don't do a surprise.
No, animals really shouldn't be a surprise.
I agree.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they are, because I know people who have done that, and it's not wise.
Yeah, exactly. Getting a new puppy for the girlfriend for Valentine's Day, not such a great idea.
Exactly. What about foods? Because we talk a lot about your diet as we get into the new year. We talk about our diet.
Yes.
What about food for our pets, and when you're dealing with rescuing pets?
Definitely. Well, rescues, a lot of times they come from nonprofit organizations who, they depend on donations to feed the animals. So a lot of times they they're feeding the animals what they can. And it may not really fall in line with what you would like to feed them.
Good point.
A lot of people out there, their standards for themselves, they're feeding natural foods or raw foods or organic foods, and all those are available for pets as well.
Right.
So you can feed the dog according to your own ethics.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so you want to think about what type of of food you would like to feed the dog.
Okay.
And then for sure come into the store and we can talk to you about what would be good for that particular animal.
Yes, that's what I was also going to ask you, because if you do choose to go rescue a pet and then you just have a lot of questions, I mean, are you guys, I would imagine, are in tune enough that if somebody brought in their pet and said, hey, here's the situation, here's where they've been, here's where they are, now what?
Right.
And you can guide them?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that we would take into consideration: the breed, the age,
okay,
the activity level, whether the dog came to them underweight, overweight, and any sort of intolerances or allergies they may have.
That they may have, sure. Yeah. That's important too, not just our own allergies, but their allergies.
Exactly.
And I also was curious, maybe you could give me some insight. I have some friends who are interested in rescuing a dog, and is there one particular breed that you would say is better with children versus another, better with other pets versus another? I mean, is there anything as far as that goes?
No, not really. I think most behavioral traits really just come down to nurturing. Smaller dogs tend to be a little bit rougher with children, but honestly, that's mostly because they tend to be pampered by their owners, and you know,
exactly.
And a lot of that kind of feeds into aggression issues. So
you don't want the aggression, especially if you have a child. You don't want any kind of aggressive behavior.
Right.
So it's really important to monitor those things. And also, I like the idea that you said about kind of testing it. And I think if you have a child, I would imagine maybe take your child around pets.
Exactly.
And see how they react.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of the rescues, they have foster programs.
Okay.
For most of the animals waiting to be adopted. So these animals have been in people's homes. They've been exposed to other dogs, cats, children, and usually the adoption people have some idea of how that animal's going to react with other cats, other dogs, children, things like that. So you can ask those questions of the adoption agencies.
And there are several shelters in our area, correct?
For sure.
Where are some of the places that you would recommend people to go?
Well, number one would be petfinder.com.
Okay.
It's actually a website that's a network of several different shelters.
Okay, petfinder.com. Got that.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, some of the places we work with, PACA, for one, the People Anti-Cruelty Association.
Sure.
Animal Humane of New Mexico is really awesome. Watermelon Ranch.
Okay. Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a ton.
There are tons of animals that need a home. So please, if you're interested, take Rachel's advice, because everything you're saying is so essential in making these decisions. And of course, if you want to meet Rachel or any of the experts at Clark's Pet Emporium, all you need to do is go to the locations that are on our screen right now. Rachel, thank you so much for coming in. We will see you next week.
Yes.
And if you have any questions, of course, email us and let us know, and we'll forward those on to Rachel as well. Now, up next, we all know a mean girl or two, right? Well, just ahead, we'll introduce you to a couple of actresses who are debuting in the show.